Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about some things that I don't like about Colombia. I've spent 7 months in Colombia in total, so I feel like I'm qualified to speak from an American point of view of the things that I like and don't like in Colombia. I'm just going to get right into it. I don't want this video to lead to any bad misconceptions of Colombia. I actually do think it's a pretty nice country overall. We're going to talk about the negatives today. There is an increased level of concern of crime, unfortunately. And look, this is all relative. If you go to Memphis, for example, or St. Louis, or one of the cities in the United States that is one of the most dangerous cities, maybe this is not that different from Colombia, in my opinion, because it really depends on where you are in the city. However, you do have to have increased caution. So some of the cautions you have to take to ensure that you do not become a target is, for one, do not wear any valuables like jewelry, Gucci, whatever you have. Do not wear that in Colombia. That will make you an instant target. And two, do not use your cell phone in the street. There are areas that you can use your cell phone, like in the majority of shopping malls and restaurants and things like that. It's okay to use your phone and it's not gonna make you an automatic target. But you do have to have an increased perception of what's going on around you when you're in the country to make sure that nothing bad happens to you. And sometimes I've heard Colombians actually blame the victim instead of the perpetrator because they had their phone in their hand and they were walking down the street wearing a ring that cost $1,000, an iPhone in their hand that cost another $1,000, and they were wearing designer pants and a designer shirt, and that made them an automatic victim. So I've heard at times that they blame the victims instead of the perpetrators, which I don't think is really cool at all to do. So that's just my opinion on that. So another thing I noticed about Colombia that I didn't really like was that life is a lot slower in Colombia than it is in the United States. People walk slower. People will show up late and take their sweet time to get to places. If you need some kind of service or you have a doctor's appointment, you will be attended to in a slower manner than in the United States. Cashiers scan the groceries a lot slower than in the United States. I've noticed that as well. And also, just in general, people will take their time with things, which in some areas that may not be such a bad thing. And a lot of people might appreciate that. They might say, people are taking their sweet time because they're enjoying the moment, which is a totally valid and fine opinion to have. But I just want to warn you that if you do go to Colombia, you will notice that lines take a lot longer there. And there are far more lines with things regarding bureaucracy, with doctor's appointments, or if you're just in a supermarket trying to buy groceries, you will confront lines a lot more often. The way that people drive. So first of all, there's this concept in the United States that the pedestrian always has the right of way and they are able to just walk as they please, and if they get hit by a car, it's never the pedestrian's fault. In Colombia, that concept does not exist. If you think that drivers in your city don't have that much patience, go to Colombia and you will change your perspective instantly. I've seen people several times where it literally just changes over from red to green, and within 0.5 seconds, people are beeping and screaming for the people to move. And I've seen this multiple times in Colombia, so that makes me think the drivers have more road rage and are less patient generally than the drivers in the United States. I can't really back that up statistically, but that's just from what I have seen. Stop signs and red lights are more or less suggestions in Colombia. There are times where they are enforced. However, there's a lot of times in a lot of rural communities where they're not enforced. And it can lead to some pretty scary situations. Also, in Colombia, a lot of times you have to take cabs. The majority of cars that you will see on the road are cabs, yellow taxi cabs. And that leads me to another point, which is that there's not really that many cars on the road. A lot of the time, probably 19 out of 20 vehicles that you'll see driving are actually motorcycles and not cars. So that's one thing that is a little bit different, I guess. I wouldn't say it's something I hate, but just something different. But the way that the traffic runs in Colombia is absurd, man. I've been in some crazy situations in the back of a cab in Colombia, in Cartagena and Barranquilla specifically, in which the driving was it was terrifying. There's been taxi drivers who have gone over sidewalks to save 5 seconds of time. There's been taxi drivers who have just blown through red lights and just gone through it without any repercussions, right in front of a cop, mind you. And that kind of leads me to another point, is the Colombian law makes no sense to me as a foreigner. Like, I have actually read a good amount of the Colombian legal code in Spanish to try to make some sense of the laws and understand my basic rights there. And it's so confusing because it makes no sense. So basically, there's been multiple stories that I've heard where there's been couples who have wanted to get married and they go to one notary, right? And the notary says, oh, your paperwork isn't valid, this is missing, we can't marry you guys. Okay. And then that couple will go to another notary, and then they'll have the same thing happen, and they'll maybe say, oh, we could do it, but you're missing only this document. You need this document for us to do it. And then a couple will go to another notary, and then voila, they'll be able to marry just like that. The notary will say, oh, there's nothing missing, everything's good, which makes me think if these notaries are following the Colombian law, they don't even know their own laws, which is crazy to me. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that if you have a question, a legal question, and you ask a lawyer something, you will get 10 different answers from 10 different lawyers. And if you go to notaries, you will probably have the same result, really. It's like the bureaucracy in Colombia. It can be easy, but it just depends on being in the right place in the right time. And you just don't know the legal codes, and the lawyers and the notaries don't even know their own legal codes. So it can, as you imagine, become a mess very quickly. Police officers, I've seen them just see people go through red lights and stop signs and they don't do anything about it. I've seen people speed 70, 80 mile per hour past a cop. They don't do anything about it, and then cops will just randomly pull people over. And that makes, again, no sense to me. That's another thing that I do not like about Colombia, is that there's no system that the whole country abides by. And that's something that's a little concerning to me as a foreigner when I'm there. And just to expand on that point a little bit, here in the United States, police officers need to have a search warrant to search for drugs or alcohol or weapons or anything like that. There's protections for the citizen. In Colombia, from what I am aware of, there is no such protections that exist, and police officers can do whatever they want and get away with it. So another thing that I don't like about Colombia is the weather. Obviously something that nobody can control. But basically what happens the majority of the days in Bogota or Medellin or Cartagena, the majority of the cities have this issue where you'll be enjoying the day, super sunny, not a cloud in the sky, and then out of nowhere, about 5-10 minutes later, it will be downpouring, and that will last for the rest of the day. This happens so often. If you pull up right now in the weather app, Medellin, you will see that probably every single day it says 70% chance of rain or thunderstorms. And that is true because it's unpredictable. You cannot predict the weather, and that makes planning for things so hard. I don't know how people plan. I have no idea, because here in the United States, at least you can get an idea what's going on the next day or in a few days. In Colombia, you have no idea what to expect. If it's gonna rain, if it's not, you don't know, and you just have to go for it and see what happens. So that's another thing that I don't really like about Colombia. But I want to conclude this video and just say thank you for everybody that listened. I hope this doesn't change your mind about visiting Colombia. It really is a wonderful place, and I would recommend that everybody sees it at least once in their life. But these are just some things to be on the lookout for, and some things that I personally did not like about Colombia. But again, it is a beautiful country and everybody should explore. So thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your day.